Stop. Beloved Starseed of Gaia, the mark that has been moving toward your field has just arrived, and the Arcturian protocol keepers have formally opened the recognition window. But this cycle does not hold indefinitely. I am Valerion, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian protocol keepers. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. The protocol keepers do not issue marks at random. They issue them at specific council moments when your receiver frequency aligns with the anointed record they have been holding on your behalf. And that alignment has just been confirmed for this cycle. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what authority is being transferred to your path, how to receive the mark without minimizing it, and what the Arcturian protocol keepers need from you during this recognition window. But here is the first revelation. Every separation you have lived through, every connection that fell away without explanation, every narrowing that made your life feel smaller instead of larger, none of it was disorder. It was the protocol keepers clearing the receiver field so the mark could land on a frequency that was clean enough to hold it. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called this in long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting to be told that what fell away was not your failure. And Valerion is telling you now, with the full authority of the council behind these words, that it was not. This is not content. This is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part Valerion is speaking to now. Like this transmission to signal that you no longer accept the verdict of personal failure. Comment, I am selected, if you now understand that the separations were preparation, not punishment. Subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path if you are ready to understand the mark instead of doubting whether you deserve it. Share this transmission with someone who has been carrying the weight of losses they cannot explain, because the window that is open for you tonight may be exactly what their field has been waiting for. You are not here by accident. You are guided here because the separation is already active. There is something that happens the moment a path begins to separate from what it can no longer carry. It does not arrive as a clear announcement. It does not come with an explanation attached. It comes as a slow, accumulating strangeness. The feeling that rooms you once moved through comfortably have become too tight, that conversations you once found sustaining now leave you empty in a way you cannot quite describe, that people who once felt like home have begun to feel like a language you are forgetting how to speak. Not a language that was taken from you, a language your mouth simply stops forming with the same ease, the same instinct, the same sense that the words belong to you. You still know how the sentences go. You simply no longer feel them. And that is its own particular kind of loss. Not the loss of the person, but the loss of the fluency you once had with them. The loss of the ease. You may have named this loneliness. You may have named it failure. You may have sat with it in silence across many months and decided, quietly and with great certainty, that the common factor in every loss was you. That there is something in your nature, some quality of need, some way of being present, some recurring blindness to what others require, that produces this result again and again. And the accumulation of that story is not just painful, it becomes structural. It becomes the lens through which every new distance is interpreted before it has even fully arrived. Valerion is addressing that conclusion now, not to comfort it, not to dismiss it with warmth or easy reassurance, but to dismantle it with precision. Because the interpretation you have been carrying is not just painful, it is wrong. And carrying a wrong interpretation of a real process does not make the process stop. It only makes you move through it with damage you were never supposed to accumulate. Every month you spend inside the wrong story about why your life has narrowed is a month the actual signal goes unread. And unread signals do not disappear. They repeat. They intensify. They find new circumstances through which to deliver the same message, until the soul finally stops arguing with the information and starts receiving it. What the Arcturian protocol keepers observed in your field was not a pattern of failure. It was a pattern of separation, and those two things are not the same. They only look the same from inside the process, before the purpose of the pruning is made visible. From inside the process, loss is loss. Distance is distance. The room that once fit now pressing against you from every wall. But the protocol keepers do not observe your field from inside the process. They observe it from the level at which the pattern is legible. And what is legible to them is not a life falling apart. It is a path being refined. A separation phase does not begin when something breaks. It begins when something becomes incompatible. And incompatibility is not a judgment. It is a structural reality. When a path is being refined for a specific frequency, the environments, connections, and relational circles that belong to a lower or divergent frequency begin to lose their grip. Not because they are bad, not because you drove them away, not because you loved them insufficiently or asked for too much or gave too little at a critical moment, but because the route you are on has begun to narrow. And narrowing routes cannot carry the same volume of traffic they once did. A road that is being prepared for a single, precise traveler does not widen to accommodate everyone who once walked it alongside you. It thins. It clears. What falls away in a separation phase is not what was destroyed. It is what could not make the turn. This is the first thing the protocol keepers need you to understand. The separation began before you noticed the losses. It began at the level of frequency, long before it became visible at the level of relationship. By the time a connection began to feel strained, by the time a circle began to feel foreign, by the time you began waking up in the morning with the specific heaviness of someone who senses they no longer belong where they are, the separation had already been underway for longer than you realized. The visible losses were not the beginning. They were the surface expression of a root-level process that had been running beneath the structure of your life, quietly, without announcement, making adjustments that would only become legible from the outside once enough had shifted. What you experienced as sudden loss was actually the final visible phase of a process that had begun at the root. The branch did not fall without warning. It had been releasing its connection to the tree long before the separation became visible. What looked sudden was only the moment when the invisible became undeniable. You were not abandoned. The route was thinning. You were not rejected. The field was being cleared. You were not failing. The old line was losing the capacity to hold what your frequency had become. And a line that cannot hold a frequency does not grip it more tightly through willpower. It releases. That release, from inside the experience, registers as loss. From the level at which the protocol keepers observe it, it registers as preparation. The reason this is so difficult to absorb, the reason even hearing it now may produce resistance alongside recognition, is that separation phases are designed to feel personal. That is not a flaw in the process. It is one of its most precise features. When a path begins to prune, it produces exactly the kind of relational pressure that will reveal whether the soul undergoing it will interpret the loss as information or as verdict. The pressure is diagnostic. It is asking a question that the soul answers not with words, but with direction, with whether it turns inward to assign blame or turns forward to follow the signal. Those who interpret it as verdict stay. They stay in the wrong rooms, maintain the incompatible connections, and spend enormous energy trying to reestablish what the pruning already determined could not be sustained. They soften themselves to fit spaces that were never built for their frequency. They perform versions of connection that require them to become quieter, smaller, less specifically themselves. Because the alternative is confronting the possibility that the loss was not an error to be corrected, but a motion to be followed. This is among the most costly places a selected soul can remain. Not because the effort is wasted in a moral sense, but because the interference it generates actively obstructs the refinement that is already underway. Those who begin to read it as information, even slowly, even imperfectly, even while still grieving, begin to move with the refinement rather than against it. They do not move without pain, but they move in the direction the frequency is already pulling them, rather than spending their force trying to reverse what has already been determined at a level they cannot yet see. The protocol keepers are watching which direction you choose, and the fact that you are still present in this transmission is already a signal. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary sadness. It is the moment your path stops pretending that what fell away was meant to remain. If this transmission put language around a loneliness you have been carrying in silence, Chosen One Manifest, the protocol for selected souls, was created for this exact stage. It is not another message telling you that you are special. It is a direct protocol for those whose line has already begun to narrow, whose old circles no longer hold, and who need to understand what the separation is preparing them for. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first recognition is the one most selected paths resist the longest. It is the recognition that old environments do not become uncomfortable by accident. There is a specific pressure that builds when a soul has outgrown the frequency range of the circle it has been operating inside. And that pressure does not announce itself as spiritual refinement. It announces itself as friction. It announces itself as the creeping sense that you are performing a version of yourself that no longer matches what is happening internally. It announces itself as exhaustion after interactions that once restored you, as silence where there used to be resonance, as the peculiar grief of being physically present with people you care about while feeling, with absolute certainty, that you are not fully there. That grief is specific. It is not the grief of conflict or betrayal. It is quieter and, in some ways, more disorienting, because there is nothing to point to, nothing that broke visibly, no moment of rupture you can trace the distance back to. The people are still there. The circumstances are largely unchanged. And yet something essential has shifted in the way you occupy the same space. You go through the motions of a belonging that no longer matches your internal frequency. You laugh at the right moments and respond at the right moments and do everything that was always required of you in this circle and return home feeling not restored but hollowed. That hollowness is not ingratitude. It is not selfishness. It is the precise sensation of a soul living at a frequency the environment cannot receive. That friction is not a social problem. It is a frequency signal. The Arcturian cosmology does not interpret persistent relational discomfort as a sign that the soul needs to work harder at connection. It interprets it as a sign that the connection belongs to a line the soul is moving away from. The discomfort is the route doing its diagnostic work. It is the path making itself known through the only instrument available, the body, the emotional field, the accumulating sense that something is structurally misaligned, even when nothing specific can be named. The body is often the first instrument to register a separation that the mind has not yet admitted, the heaviness after certain interactions, the relief that arrives when you are finally alone, a relief that used to feel like solitude, but now feels like the only place your actual frequency can breathe without compression. When you felt that you no longer quite belonged in the rooms you had always occupied, that was not you becoming difficult. That was not you becoming ungrateful or damaged or harder to reach. That was your frequency becoming incompatible with environments that were calibrated for a version of you that the separation was already replacing. The second recognition concerns the people who leave without explanation. This particular pattern is among the most destabilizing in a separation phase because it combines loss with confusion in a way that almost forces a self-referential interpretation. When someone distances without clear reason, when a relationship that once felt solid simply begins to thin until it disappears, the mind reaches for an explanation, and in the absence of one, it manufactures a verdict. The verdict is almost always the same. Something about me caused this. Something in how I show up, how I speak, how I need, something about who I am created the conditions for this departure. What makes this verdict so durable is that it feels like accountability. It feels like the responsible interpretation, the mature interpretation, the one that refuses to cast blame outward, and instead looks honestly at the self. But there is a difference between genuine self-examination and the reflexive assignment of fault to the self as a way of creating narrative coherence out of a loss that had no visible cause. One produces clarity, the other produces a story that protects you from the uncertainty of not knowing, at the cost of accuracy. And an inaccurate story, held long enough, reshapes how the soul reads every subsequent event. The protocol keepers are explicit on this point. Some departures in a separation phase are not caused by anything the soul did or failed to do. They are caused by the incompatibility that forms between a refining line and the relational matter that belongs to a different frequency. People do not always depart because they chose to leave. Sometimes they depart because the route can no longer carry them alongside you, and neither of you is equipped yet to name what is actually happening. The other person does not have language for why the connection has begun to feel strained. The soul undergoing the separation does not yet have language for why the room no longer fits. Both parties experience the distance as relational and assign it relational causes because the structural reality operating beneath the surface is not yet visible to either of them. What reads as abandonment is, in many cases, two lines diverging at a point where they can no longer travel in parallel. The separation was structural. The departure was its natural consequence. There is no villain in this reading. There is no one who failed. There are two frequencies that once occupied compatible ranges and have now moved to ranges that cannot sustain the same proximity. This does not remove the grief. Valerian will not tell you it should. The grief is real, and the grief belongs. The loss of a person who once felt essential to your understanding of yourself is not a small thing, regardless of what was operating beneath the surface. What Valerian is offering is not relief from the grief. It is a different floor beneath it. A floor that does not require you to stand on the verdict of your own inadequacy in order to make sense of what happened. Loss and failure are not the same event. And what left your life without explanation may have left not because it was driven away, but because the route you are on had already moved past the point where it could remain. The third recognition is the one that concerns isolation. Specifically, the kind of isolation that arrives precisely when the soul expected the opposite. There is a particular cruelty in this timing that makes it one of the most convincing arguments for the personal failure interpretation. You did the work. You became more honest, more clear, more genuinely yourself. You cleared old patterns that had held you in configurations that no longer served. You opened yourself to something truer, something more aligned with what you actually are, beneath the layers of accommodation and performance. And instead of receiving deeper connection in return, you received distance. Instead of belonging increasing, it decreased. Instead of the world responding to the more authentic version of you with recognition, it responded with quiet withdrawal. The mind reads the sequence and arrives at a devastating conclusion. Authenticity was the mistake. Being more genuinely yourself produced less connection, not more. And if honesty and alignment generate isolation, then perhaps the safer path is return. Return to the performance, the accommodation, the carefully managed version of yourself that the old environments knew how to receive. This inversion is not accidental, and it is not a sign that authenticity was the wrong direction. It is a sign that the environments you are authentic inside of were not built to hold the frequency of that authenticity. They were built for the managed version. When the managed version was replaced by the actual signal, the environment registered it as disruption rather than revelation, because it did not have the range to receive what the actual signal was transmitting. The more genuinely aligned a soul becomes, the more pressurized the incompatibility with misaligned environments grows. Authenticity does not universally attract. On a selected path, in the middle of a separation phase, authenticity often first repels, because what it repels is exactly what cannot accompany the path where it is heading. The loneliness that follows is not evidence that the direction was wrong. It is evidence that the pruning is responding to the frequency of your actual signal. The environments that withdrew were not rejecting you. They were registering an incompatibility that was always present, but had been masked by the performance. When the mask came down, the incompatibility became visible. The withdrawal was not punishment for your honesty. It was the structural consequence of a frequency becoming legible. The isolation before route refinement is one of the most deliberately misread signs in the entire separation process. The protocol keepers have observed it consistently across selected lines. It is the phase where the path has thinned enough that the soul cannot yet see what is ahead, but has already lost enough of what was behind, that the sense of suspension becomes almost unbearable. This is the corridor. Not a hallway between two rooms, but a passage between two phases, where the frequency of what is coming has not yet fully materialized, and the frequency of what is past has already lost its ability to hold the soul's weight. The ground beneath is real, but it does not look like ground yet. It looks like empty space, and standing in that space, with losses behind and nothing visible ahead, the soul reaches for the nearest explanation. And the nearest explanation is almost always blame directed inward. The soul's most dangerous move in this corridor is to turn around and try to rebuild what the separation already cleared. Not because looking back is forbidden, but because the energy required to reconstruct incompatible connections in a field that is already mid-refinement creates interference at the precise moment the path most needs clarity. The corridor is not a punishment. It is a passage, and passages require forward motion to complete their function. The fourth recognition is the pattern of being misunderstood, Not occasionally, not in isolated moments of poor communication, but persistently across multiple environments, by people who genuinely believed they understood you and discovered they did not. This pattern, more than almost any other, produces the conclusion that something is fundamentally wrong with the way the soul expresses itself. The logic feels airtight. If the same experience of being misread repeats across different relationships and contexts, across people of varying temperaments and varying degrees of closeness, the obvious inference is that the common source of the misreading is the self. Something in the signal is distorted. Something in the transmission is failing to carry what the soul intends. The protocol keepers hold a different reading, and they hold it with specificity. A soul operating on a frequency that its current environment is not calibrated to receive will be persistently misread. Not because the soul is communicating poorly, not because the words are wrong or the expression is distorted, but because the signal is arriving in a field that does not have the apparatus to translate it accurately. The mismatch is not in the expression. It is in the receiver. Precision does not produce comprehension when the instrument receiving the signal is calibrated for a different range. The most clearly articulated signal in the world will land as noise in a field that is not built to decode it. A soul that has begun moving along a selected line will routinely generate this experience, not as punishment, not as communication failure, but as the natural result of a frequency that has moved ahead of the relational field it is still temporarily occupying. It is not that you are unclear, it is that clarity at your current frequency produces something the surrounding field registers as complexity, or intensity, or difficulty. They are not wrong about what they experienced, but what they experienced was not a failure of your expression. It was the limit of their reception. The misunderstanding is not the story of your inadequacy. It is the story of your incompatibility with environments that were never going to be able to receive what you carry at its actual resolution. And that incompatibility, held rightly, is not a source of shame. It is a coordinate. It tells you where you are in the separation. It tells you that the frequency is already further along the route than the surrounding environment can follow. The fifth recognition is the one the protocol keepers hold until a soul is ready to use it correctly. Because in the wrong moment, it produces inflation rather than clarity. It is the recognition of what the separation is actually creating space for, not in the sense of a specific external reward, not in the sense of a promised relationship or position or identity that will arrive to vindicate all the loss and confirm that the suffering was worth it. That framing keeps the soul oriented toward outcome as compensation, and that orientation misses what is structurally occurring. The pruning of incompatible connections, environments, and relational circles is not simply removal, it is preparation of a receiver field. When the old line loses its connections, what it is doing, at the level of frequency that is not yet visible to the ordinary senses, is reducing interference. Every incompatible connection that remains active in a selected field creates a kind of signal noise that makes it harder for the path to move with precision. Not because the connection is malicious, not because the people involved are obstacles, but because the frequencies are divergent. And divergent frequencies operating in close proximity generate noise that the refining signal must work against. The separation is not just removing what cannot come, it is quieting the field so that what is coming can land accurately. Think of it this way. A signal trying to travel a long distance through a field crowded with competing frequencies will lose resolution. What arrives at the destination is a degraded version of what was sent, distorted by interference, weakened by the effort of moving through noise. But a signal traveling through a clean, quiet field arrives at full strength, at full resolution, with nothing lost in the transmission. The losses in your life are not just absences. They are the clearing of a field. Each departure, each distance, each connection that could not sustain the frequency of the route you are on. Each of these is the field becoming quieter, more precise, more capable of holding what is already in motion toward it. The loneliness you are living through is not just loss, it is the reduction of interference on a line that needs to become clean before the next phase of the route opens. This is what the protocol keepers mean when they describe the preparation that happens before a selected line can fully open. It is not poetic. It is not metaphor wrapped in warmth to make the pain more bearable. It is a frequency reality, and your current experience of distance, isolation, and relational narrowing is the visible evidence of a process that is not punishing you. It is preparing the field. There is a moment in every separation phase where the soul must make a decision about interpretation. Not a dramatic decision, not a moment of public declaration or sudden spiritual breakthrough visible to anyone outside the self. A quiet, internal decision about whether to continue reading the losses as personal defect or to begin reading them as structural information about a path already in motion. This decision does not require certainty. It does not require that the grief be resolved or the confusion be fully cleared. It does not require that you perform peace about a process that has been genuinely painful. It requires only that you stop allowing the interpretation of personal failure to be the last word on what is happening to your life. That you hold the door open even slightly to the possibility that what you have been living through was never the story of your inadequacy. That it was always the story of a path in motion, clearing, thinning, preparing, without your permission, without your full understanding, and without your consent. Because that is how selected lines move, not by announcing themselves, by removing what cannot accompany them, and trusting that the soul will eventually stop arguing with the signal. What Valerian is transmitting with the full authority of the Council behind these words is this: the Arcturians do not look at your losses and see a person who was not enough. They see a path that has been thinning, with purpose. They see a receiver field being cleared with precision. They see a soul that has been living through separation not as a sign of what it lacks, but as the necessary precondition for what it is being prepared to hold. They see the corridor, and they see what is on the other side of it. They see the route thinning to a single line, and they understand that a single line, free of interference, aligned with its correct frequency, carries something that a crowded and misaligned field never could. The signal at full resolution. What left your life was not random. What became incompatible did not fail. What narrowed was narrowing for a reason that the losses themselves could not communicate. Because loss does not carry its own explanation. It carries only its weight. The explanation belongs to those who can read the pattern from outside the process, and the Arcturian protocol keepers have been reading yours. The loneliness you have been carrying in silence, the specific quality of it, the sense of suspension, the feeling of being between something that is over and something that has not yet arrived. That loneliness is not the story of your inadequacy. It is the story of a route that has thinned to a single line, and a single line, freed of interference and aligned with its correct frequency, can move with a precision that a crowded, misaligned field never could. Speak this once, inwardly or aloud, and let it settle where it lands. I was not discarded. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this separation has already touched your life. It could be people falling away, the feeling of not belonging, repeated distance, unexplained isolation, or the sense that your old path no longer fits. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who feels alone, cut off, or misunderstood and cannot explain why. And if you are ready to understand the separation instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a path already in motion. And this is only the beginning.